franchise secrets, Erik Van Horn.
Hey, Franchise Secrets, I've got Yoel Gutierrez on, and he's a good friend of mine. He's been in the Franchise Tribe Mastermind for a long time, been part of the Tribe of Investors, and he's a Mosquito Joe franchisee. He does things outside of franchising as well as a smaller mom and pop business owner. So he's franchisee, started other businesses. He runs a mastermind within his own franchise. So he learned masterminding from me. I learned masterminding from other people. He learned it from me, started that in his own franchise, which I think every one of these listeners could do. So if you're interested in something like that, you're going to love this show. But he's done a lot of different things, and he's had some unique success early on. He took advantage of that. So I think you're going to really enjoy this one with my friend, Yoel. Yoel, man, I've been waiting to get you on the podcast. We've been friends for a long time. It's about time you're on, man. How you doing?
You and me both, man. Thanks. I'm doing good. So it was a real pleasure and honor to be asked to be on this. So I remember you coming onto one of my events early on, and, you know, I could see in you what was going to happen. So it's good to see how far you've come.
Dude, it's awesome. It's fun to get to know people and then see them grow, and the feeling's mutual. So we got all kinds of stuff we're going to talk about today. Let's just get started. I mean, you're a franchisee with Mosquito Joe. You do a lot of cool things as a franchisee within the franchising system that I think other franchisees should kind of take note and learn from. But why don't we go ahead and give the audience a little bit of your background so they know who you are and how you got into Mosquito Joe.
And sure. So my name is Yoel Gutierrez, obviously.
Or as how we say in South Dakota, Yoel Gutierrez.
Yoel Gutierrez, yeah.
I'm better at that after I just got back from Costa Rica, so I was applying a lot of Espanol and embarrassing my family for sure.
Good. Now we got to get you down to Miami again and speak some real Spanish, some Spanglish. So, you know, when I was young, my father owned a construction company, and I always saw him working all the time. I would work in his business. He would take me in the trucks. His employees would take me. And when I was little, that's what I thought you did when you grew up, right? You own the business. That's what I thought was going to happen. And I had it in my head where I was going to be a part of that business. I wanted to be a civil engineer, just to grow into that business. And unfortunately, my dad passed away when I was about 15 years old. He had skin cancer. And when that happens, you know, you become a man real quick. You had to start working out the gate at 15. And I had various odd jobs here and there. I went to school for mechanics. I was Honda certified. What happened there was that my mom had never worked a day in her life. And then she just went into the role of the bread maker in that family. So she started opening companies. She bought real estate. There was one company that I was working for as a mechanic, and they said, "We're going to sell the business." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." So I went home, I told my mom, and she was like, "Well, is that what you want to do?" I said, "Yeah." So she talked to my uncle. They kind of got their money together, and they bought that business out of nowhere. And I was so surprised. So me being a young kid, about 18, 19, I was in that business, and I didn't know what we had at the time, right? So I probably could have worked harder. But that's around the time when eBay came out. Amazon was kind of coming out. I think more eBay. So people were getting car parts cheaper online than what we were paying for them. So that business kind of started to dwindle a little bit, and I got bored of it. So I started looking for something else. So I became a property appraiser. And then from there, I went into IT randomly. And I was in IT for 15 plus years.
As an entrepreneur, as an employee?
As an employee. Eventually, as an entrepreneur, I opened a company later on. And I had opened up companies in between, you know, trying to make shirts. You know, I was always trying to get to that level of owning a business, and they just failed and failed and failed. But now being older, I know that those weren't failures. They were lessons. And all those lessons led me to where I was. So back in 2014, a good friend of mine came up to me and said, you know, I see how you work. I want to get into business with you. And it was out of the blues. I was like, yeah, of course. So he was looking at franchises. He was looking at 24-hour franchises, fitnesses. And I thought in my head, I don't have that kind of money. I can't do that. You got to pay people 24 hours, utilities 24 hours. I don't have that bankroll. So I went in August to visit my mother in Georgia for her birthday. And I was telling her what I wanted to do. She was like, you know what? Our front door neighbor just opened up a business last year. He said he's doing really good. It's called Mosquito Joe. So I crossed the street, knocked on his door, and we spoke for about an hour right there at his doorstep. And at the end of the conversation, he was like, man, if you don't do this in Miami, you're an idiot. And I said, yeah, you're right. So a month later, we had signed the paperwork for Mosquito Joe. So we had done all our the due diligence that we knew what to do with, right?
Yeah. Which is not the same due diligence that you would do if you knew what you were getting into. And that's always the case. Everyone, if you're a buyer out there, you're looking at buying a franchise, you only do what you know how to do. Once you get into it, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't do nearly enough due diligence, but you did it. And, and then you live with it and you make it work. But that's such a true statement. You did the due diligence that you knew what to do.
Luckily, it turned out better than what we thought. Well, I mean, we're still learning things about the corporate. It's been sold a couple of times, so it's a different animal than what it used to be. But at the beginning, it was the brand, it was the colors, it was what it stood for, it was a service that I knew we needed in Miami. My wife complains to no end about getting bit by mosquitoes all the time, so I knew we had an audience. So we signed up, and within the first 2 months, my partner and I still had full-time jobs. And we said, you know what, let's open this franchise part-time. We still need income. We still got to pay our bills. And from the day we opened, it must have been 2.5 weeks that we said, we have to leave our jobs. We don't have enough time. We got so busy so fast that it was incredible to us that we were just like, what's going on here? This is crazy. So we had one truck. It was me and my partner in the truck, in the van, working, taking phone calls. I was writing notes. We would get back home at night, call customers back, call leads back, sign up people. And within about 2 months, we had to buy a second van. So we bought the second van, and then we were separate, so we could double the work, which was better. And from there, we kept growing. We hired our first employee.
So you kind of working in the business at that point. You had a job. You and your business partner, 50-50?
Yeah.
Bought a second truck. So you guys each had your own truck. You were definitely self-employed, working in the business, and then you're still getting busier.
Yep. 100%. Getting busier. Had to hire a first employee within 4 months. Young kid, he was able to help us out. And right now, I'm very proud of him because he became a pest control manager, trainer, and he's gone on to do great things. So we're very proud of that. So yeah, then that was 2015. So 2015, we came up, we won some awards with the franchise, based on revenue on the first year. Second year, Zika hits Miami.
Which Miami residents, they hate that. That's the worst thing that they want to hear. Tourism, nobody wants to hear that. But when that hit, what did you think?
Man, the first thing I heard was the governor put in a state of emergency for Florida for this. And knowing people in certain positions is good. And I had a family friend that was, or still is, a reporter for a local news station. So the first thing I did was I called her and I asked her, is there anything we can do? She said, yeah, I'll have a video crew at your house at 8 p.m. tonight. I said, okay, cool. So that night they showed up. I got my uniform. My partner went out spraying some water just so they could get it on camera, and they interviewed us. And from there on out, I was on Good Morning America, the Today Show. We were all over the place, all the local TV stations, Spanish TV stations, radio, newspaper, everything. Whenever anybody called me to ask, I said yes, because I knew this. I only had one chance to make this count, and it counted because we grew up 4x that year.
Wow. Was that your second year in business?
Second year in business.
So I want to take a little detour right now. For all the franchise buyers out there, when you're interviewing somebody or going through due diligence and you're talking to franchisees and validation, and someone's crushing it, you need to dig a little bit deeper to find out why they're crushing it. It might be, if they're in the restoration business, that a tornado hit that town and no other town around it and caused a bunch of flooding and roofs off and whatever. Or they had a hurricane come through a particular year, or Zika happened. And not only did that happen, but the franchisee knew how to take advantage of that to grow their business. So that's what a lot of franchise buyers don't really understand when they're validating with franchisees. The numbers look great, but you need to dig in. Why do the numbers look great? And is it a one-off thing? So, I have a lot of different scenarios going through my head, Yoel, as I hear you say that, because I've seen franchise buyers just make mistakes. They're not digging in deeper to find out the why. So I did want to mention that, because if they were to talk to you, you're crushing it, grew 4X, and they're like, great, they take notes, grew 4X. That's what I can expect in my town, next year, my second year, we always grow 4X. Like, just be aware of that, franchise buyers. So sorry for that little tangent, but I had to say that because I think that's important.
No, that's 100% correct. Because I tell people as well that are looking to franchise, and I'm like, be wary about the people that the franchisor tells you to talk to, because it's usually the best performing people.
And they can't really do that. They're not supposed to really do that. But like, there's things that happen, and then there's things that happen in the real world. So that's a very good advice. So what would you do? Like, what do you tell people?
So I tell them, go on Google, find out ones in different areas, and just start calling them. I mean, don't just take their word for it. Call different ones, because everybody's going to have a different experience with a franchisor. It could be great, and it could be just terrible. I mean, and obviously not everybody that opens a franchise is going to succeed. You're buying a business in a box, but that business isn't going to succeed if you don't work it. So if you don't work it, doesn't matter what corporate does.
It's easy for franchisees to blame the franchisor for a failure. Now, there are some franchisors that absolutely contribute to franchisees' failures. We know that. That's true. But a lot of people really aren't that entrepreneurial, and they're really not as good as they think they are. And in franchising, I think it's really easy for people to blame the franchisor first without looking at themselves first. And because if you had done that as a mom and pop, would you have succeeded? Why or why not? So
I think there's also people that are entrepreneurial that don't know how to follow a system. They think they know better.
Yeah, you could be too. That's true.
They think they know better, and they want to do things their way, and it doesn't work out, and then they still blame the franchisor. And you can't blame them until you follow their program, and then it fails.
One of the things that I like to, we're getting way off topic, which is what we do. And, but one of the things that I like to look at is, are there people succeeding in the franchise system? And if there are, the majority of people making money or having success, however you've defined success or the franchise system defines success, that tells me it's a me problem, a franchisee problem, not a franchisor problem. So if nobody's making any money in the franchise system, then it's a franchisor problem. If you're not making money and a third or 50% or 80% of them are making money, then you have people to look to, and you can figure out why you're not making money. That's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, and I think the other caveat is location, right? So territory might be an issue. So that's where your due diligence.
Talk about that, because I know that you know a lot about that, and talk about it however you want.
Specifically for our franchise, location is very important, right? Because if you're in Alaska, you're going to have a very short mosquito season. So you can't expect to make millions and millions of dollars for a season that's a month long. Now, our location, we're open year long. So we can do a lot more in revenue with a lot less overhead. So our size franchise up north needs to do 4 times more, or have 4 times more employees than we do, just because we're open all year long. They have to do it at a lot shorter season, so they need more employees, more customers to bring all that revenue in. So that would be a case where I'd have to do my due diligence on the franchise where I live. Is this a business where it's going to be feasible for me to make money especially if it's seasonal. So that's definitely something that you need to take into consideration.
And even to take it a step further, different industries have different licenses, different things that you need, and some people see that as a challenge. It's a barrier to entry.
Well, yeah, I have one of those too.
Yeah, but talk about that.
California is coming into the Mosquito Joe ethos, very recently, and they've had just issue after issue after issue about getting stuff licensed because they're so tough on pest control and pesticides. So we're having to do all natural stuff, which works, and we like to do, but they just have to jump through so many more hoops that at the end of the day you have to ask yourself, is the juice worth the squeeze on that? Do I put all that money into this licensing to get this business going?
And it may or may not be, because if you need to have, if it's more difficult, there's more barriers to entry. That means there's going to be less competition.
Right.
Let's so how long have you been a Mosquito Joe franchisee now?
So we opened 2015. So I think we're going on our eighth year.
And you have how large is your area? How large is your territory?
So we own 4 territories in South Florida. So we're, if you're familiar with the area, we're basically from Aventura down to the Keys. So all of Dade County and Monroe County is our area.
So you're doing some fun stuff within the Mosquito Joe system. You were with them when it was owned by Buzz Brands. I believe Kevin had started Buzz Brands and sold it to Neighborly. So you've been through that transition from kind of startup to owned by a large family of brand, probably the largest family of brands, Neighborly. And there's challenges and different things that come along with that. And there's really good things that come along with that too. We might get into some of that. But what I want to talk about is COVID hit. They canceled their convention like a lot of brands did. You as a franchisee knew like the importance of convention. And so you just created your own. And I was out there for that first one. Talk about that. Like, I mean, that's a franchisee, like just doing something within the system like that. And I think that's amazing. And then that's turned into other things for you. You've been a part of my mastermind since day one, I believe. And then you've also created your own mastermind within that, within your own system there at Mosquito Joe. So let's start with the convention and then transition into mastermind, because any franchisee can start a mastermind in their own franchise system, which I think is awesome.
So we started with Buzz Franchise Brands, like you said, and we had our own convention down in Cancun every year. And when Neighborly, which was Dwyer back then, had bought us out, they wanted to include us in their reunion every year, which is their major convention that they include all their brands with. And I think we knew that was going to happen. And I think we had a couple more Cancun trips left, but then COVID hit and they have to cancel that. So in our intranet and in the system, there was people, saying, I really wish we could do our own thing, and I don't know why I said it, but I said, I'll do it. So I put it out there. I had never done anything like that before in the past. I haven't.
And it's not easy. Start doing a convention is not easy. I did a shindig, which is not nearly a convention. So like, I understand this is not easy to put on a convention. So keep going.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were looking at it as a way to keep all of us, because the big thing with this was we asked ourselves, where do we learn the most? Even when we went to convention in Cancun. And it was always having a drink by the pool with a group of people in the jacuzzi, laughing. But that's where we got all the big ideas that came out of there. How do we play employees? How do we do commission based? How do we do this? How do you train? And that all came through those little conversations. So I said, what can I do to replicate that, but in a kind of bigger format? So I said, what, I'm just going to call it a funvention, because I want this to be fun. I don't want it to be all snooty and classes all day and all this. So that's what I did. I put it out there. It was the first year after, I think it was 2021. So yeah, 2021, I think so. That was the first year. And I said, Cancun, we usually go to, it's all inclusive. That's very easy. People don't have to be buying food and drinks and everything. I said, let me find something. So I was able to find Club Med in Florida at Port St. Lucie that was an all-inclusive resort. And I think it's one of the only ones in the U.S. that's all-inclusive. So we called them, started getting things together, and it's just steamrolled into this event where people were very excited about. And I was surprised. So all of a sudden I found myself making this event and having to find people to talk, and which, by the way, thank you for doing that, because that was a great speech. But I think it was just more bringing them together, because what we did was, I didn't have a lot of speakers and classes. We just got the top people in the system up in the front of the room and passed around the mic. And I think we could have been there for 30 hours asking questions, because that's basically what we did. And then we made some time for pool. We made some time for dinner. We had their whole dining section reserved for us. So every night we had a dinner together. So it was very, very like a big community of Mosquito Joe owners, which we wanted to do.
And you're the ringleader. And you're the ringleader of all this.
So that's funny. I like doing that stuff. But I still go to the corporate convention reunion. I feel that you still have to have that connection with. I have a good relationship with corporate. I don't sway people from going one way or the other. I go to both. Obviously, I go to mine, but I go to theirs because I feel that I want to be there. I want to participate. I want to be somebody in the system that people look up to. When I started, there wasn't many that were veterans, because the franchise had opened 2 years before. So I think they started franchising in 2013. So there was a couple veterans, and they always helped me. So I said, if anybody else comes into the system and needs help, I'm going to do that, which leads me into the Mastermind. So then from that, I said, this is a great event. It's once a year in January. How do we keep doing this? Let's keep doing it. So I came up with the Mastermind, and our Mastermind is different than most. Most is based on an industry or something. Like yours is franchisee, so different franchisees, different franchisors. Mine was only for one franchise and one franchise only. So the franchisees of Mosquito Joe. So just all of us, me bringing in speakers every month, once a month, about topics that people want to hear about. So I've also created the Facebook group for all the Mosquito Joe franchises. And in there, I'm obviously abreast of things, so I can see what people are asking, what people are talking about. And just the other day, we had an influencer, a social media influencer specialist come on to tell us how to find influencers, how to pay them, the contracts, all that works, because people were asking, hey, does anybody know how to hire an influencer? And I said, no, I don't, but we can find somebody that does. So that's what we did. So they're kind of willing. So through my different networking things, I have partners that, a big partner of mine is Dan from BizHack, Dan Gretsch. He has a wide network of these people because he teaches digital marketing. So he has a network of these people. So I usually, ask him. I've asked you guys before, just bring on experts, CPAs, attorneys that have a franchise expertise, just to answer some questions. Talk about EOS was a big one too, which a lot of people don't know about, especially with smaller service-based businesses. And it is a way that you can, organize your business to scale. And that's what it's called. It's my mastermind is called Franchise Empire Builders, because we want you guys to build an empire, and we want to help them scale.
Attention, franchisors and franchisees. There are two really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You could join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisor and you're frustrated that you're not awarding as many franchises as you thought you would, this is the reason I created the Franchisor Mastermind. If you want access to the information, the techniques that the best franchise sales organizations are using to award franchises, and you want what mature brands have with their playbook of having happy, successful franchisees that grow the right way, then you might want to check out the Franchisor Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections. They want the playbook to achieve both short-term and long-term success. They want to increase enterprise value in their brand. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com. So what have you found as an advantage, besides you get paid for it, they all pay, and you want members to pay because then they're around other paying members.
That's a good point, because prior to that, I was doing it for free. And there was a few people that would always come on, and one time we get a big group, but then the next scheduled call, nobody would show up. I was like, I know they need this information. How can we make them cut more? And, it's not a lot of money either. It's just that mentality that, I'm paying for something.
That's it.
Let me go.
My franchisee mastermind is so cheap. It's $200 a month right now. And it's month to month. Start whenever you want, stop whenever you want. Like $200 a month for everything that they get. Now they have years of videos that from the sessions that we've had that they can go refer to at any time. It's just such a no-brainer. I wish franchisees would just realize that is cheap. But if you've never paid for a mastermind or a program, they think $200, that's a lot of money. I could have a dinner for that or whenever it is, But
let me tell you something. When I started in your franchise, in your mastermind, that was the first time I've ever paid for a mastermind. And I have got to spend tens of thousands of dollars because of how fun and how much I've learned. And it's worth it. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you learn so much, and you meet people and you keep in contact with people. I have people on WhatsApp now from your mastermind that that we're friends with. So it's great. I mean, if you're not on a mastermind, get on a mastermind now.
Yes, and you should just go to franchisetribe.com or just go to Scalable Franchise to learn about it. I mean, more people joining the mastermind is not going to change my lifestyle one bit, but it definitely can change some franchisees, their learning curve, their growth curve, their learn from other people's mistakes and meet a lot of new people. So let's go back to your mastermind. What do you charge for it? As a franchise, you have a running mastermind and you have franchisees in it. What do they pay you?
So I have 3 levels, and only because I include some automation software on the top 2 tiers. So I charge $97, $297, and $497. With the $497, I include personal one-on-one consultations for the automation stuff. We were having owner-only sessions because the mastermind, when you pay for it, is open to their employees as well. So I encourage them to bring on their employees, especially when it's things that they should learn, like marketing and sales and stuff. I don't want just the owner to be in there and then they walk away saying, oh, that was a great session, but then never tell anybody else. I want them to have their employees there so they can learn as well and help with business growing.
Well, that's what we did in the Franchise Tribe Mastermind. We had Ryan Casey would do sales training every month in there. And now Ryan has a course on it and all Mastermind members get that course for free. But Ryan would be in there, not just teaching the franchisees, but their sales team, whoever the sales team is, whether it's a front desk or a door knocker or giving quotes and he's a master at that. But I wanted, very similar to you, I wanted to help franchisees by helping their employees. And I, in my mind, you're taking this training off of me and I still get it for the $200 a month or the $100 a month that you charge or whatever it is, or $500 a month. That's a no-brainer. You have somebody else teaching your employees something. So
it's hard because it's kind of like, probably shouldn't say this, but me telling my wife something over and over, she doesn't learn. But then as soon as somebody else tells her the same thing, she's learned it. And I feel that's kind of what it's like with the employees. So I can tell them 100 times, this is the way you do it. This is the way you do it. But then somebody from the outside comes in and says, hey, this is the way you do it. They're like, oh, I get it.
Oh, so true. So true.
And by the way, I had Ryan Casey on one of my masterminds, and he blew it out of the park. He's amazing.
Ryan's so good. Anybody should just check out Ryan Casey's sales training. I can't remember the name of it, but just get into my Facebook group and just say, where do I find that sales training? He's so good. He's so good for all kinds of.
And your Facebook group is open, right?
Yeah, the Facebook group's free. We got 4,400 people in there right now. So go to franchisesecretsgroup.com and get in that Facebook group. And it's just
that thing is busy.
Yeah, it's I can't believe where that thing's gone. I'm not having to kick out many people these days, though. For a while, I was having to kick out people. People are always trying to pitch something, and it's been really nice the last probably 6 months. I don't have people trying to pitch stuff. But I have other people kicking people out, so maybe I just don't see it now. So let's talk about like being a franchisee. You're making money as running a mastermind, which is adding value, but you probably get more value than anybody else out of it, because once you start bringing in speakers, you get to know those speakers, and now you're the authority. Once you run the convention, the event, now you're the ringleader. You're the person bringing all that together. So as a podcast host, as me as a mastermind, founder, I love it because I get to connect with so many of these people. So what are side benefits of running that convention, being the ringleader, doing the mastermind? Like, what are some of the benefits that you receive besides just making some extra cash?
Well, I think it's kind of selfish because I like helping other businesses grow, and I would do it for free.
Yes. Same. Same.
All day long. If I could figure a way to get cash flow to my house where I don't need to work another day, I would do it for free all day long. So that's what I get. I get calls from new franchisees from all over the U.S. saying, "Hey, I heard you're the man to talk to." Sure, let's talk to me. And I help them through issues, and it's just it's a good feeling to have. I don't do it for the money, obviously. It's just a good feeling to because there's enough for everybody to go around, especially in a franchise world. We're not competitors.
No.
We each have our territory, so we can't compete against each other. So why not? If you do better up north from me, that's going to make the brand better, which makes me better. So why not just do that all over the country and just make it a household thing? That's what we're trying to do.
All right. So you also have, you're an entrepreneur. You're a franchisee, but entrepreneur. And I talk about this in my mastermind. I don't talk about it much on the podcast, much at all, but in the masterminds, we talk about this kind of stuff. As a franchisee, you're an entrepreneur. You might not be like full-on entrepreneur on that spectrum, but you are, everybody wants to go from employee to self-employed to business owner to investor. That's the track that people want to go on. That's the cash flow quadrant from Robert Kiyosaki. You go from employee to self-employed, and that was your journey. You were running the truck, you were self-employed, then you're business owner, and now most people want to go from business owner, where you're working on the business, to being an investor. And I know that you're doing things to get into that investor quadrant, as am I. But how do you get over to that investor quadrant faster, or do more in that business owner quadrant without just being in franchising? Because you can start other businesses besides just franchising once you kind of understand systems and processes that you've learned within the franchise model.
I think that's one of the keys. So what's funny is when you're starting out, most people don't know that you're on that track. I didn't know the track I was on until I got towards the end and I could see the next step. So, being in that situation, you kind of just work at it. So I always told myself, Mosquito Joe, I see the top people, I see how much they're making, I see the revenue. I have a partner, so that's 50% of profits goes to him. So I have the other 50%, right? I know I'm not going to become a millionaire in this business, but it is a stepping stone. And it's been that. And as I said it before, it became a stepping stone, and then it became a stepping stone. And now I'm so grateful for it because it's given me opportunities where, now I know how to market correctly, right? How to do digital marketing. So now I can take those skills and create another business, or join another business, or, take over another business and use those skills to scale and grow another business. I think that's where I'm heading towards, or I've been heading towards. So I've had some friends that are great business owners and they want to do something else, but they don't have all the expertise, but they have expertise in some scenario. And I have other expertise. So when you find a partner like that can complement what you're lacking, then you found a good business partner. I don't like to have too many business partners. I do want to do some stuff myself because there are issues that come with partners, right?
Yep.
There's you a lot of people know.
I know.
I've done some stuff by myself. I've done stuff with partners, and you just have to work at it. I know now I have a great team at Mosquito Joe, so I can take a lot of time away from that business now to focus on other stuff. When we were starting Mosquito Joe, we knew we couldn't do it keeping hold of our full-time job. And the only reason we succeed in Mosquito Joe so much was because we dove in 100%. And it wasn't easy either. So you could hear the numbers and hear that we 4X, but that's not, 4X profits in my pocket. We were growing, you had to buy trucks, you had to buy, there's a lot more things to do. My wife was taking care of the bills for 2 years. I sold my truck. I didn't have a car. So she would take me to and from the van where I had to have it parked because I lived in an HOA. I couldn't park my truck there, my van there. So, it's not sunshine and rainbows all the time. It's hard work. But once you get past that, these skills stay with you forever. So I started another company with a friend, Phoenix Environmental. We do mold inspections and mold remediation. And I got my mold license. I took the class, I took the test, I became certified. But it's a company where, I took all my skills from marketing. I created landing pages, websites, marketing stuff, and that starts to grow. And now you know how to build a team. So now you can put that team in place and have them run the company. So now you can step out a little bit again, kind of keep going on that route. You move on to the next one, making sure that, what you have in place doesn't fall apart. Obviously, you don't want to just leave it alone and not do anything with it. But it's having a franchise gave somebody that's never owned a real business a pathway for success, right? They give you all the tools. They give you all the operating procedures, how to do things. And from that, I learned. The cool thing about franchises is you can be doing IT and pivot into spraying for mosquitoes. I didn't have to learn anything. I didn't have to go to school for it. I bought a franchise. They did the training. I got my certifications, which, in Florida can be difficult, but, we did it. And that's what I love about franchising as well. And then franchising from there, it gives you a stepping stone. Most franchises, I don't think, are multi-million-dollar franchises. There are a lot of them. There's a handful. McDonald's, everything does millions and millions of dollars a year. But the little ones can give you a stepping stone for that track, right? Getting to that track where you can become an investor and start seeing cash flow, which thanks to you as well, that other mastermind, that a tribe of investors, really opened my eyes to investing. Because again, I didn't know what I didn't know, and getting into that mastermind really taught me a lot about investing. And now I have some investments that are covering my mortgage.
And even like the investment, so getting into that investor quadrant, but also setting up those investments the right way with the right vehicles, so you're not getting hammered with taxes. And there's so many things that go into that. So, man, I just love what you've done. Like, out of all the people that have been in my masterminds, you're the only one that I know of that's doing their own mastermind. Like, I love that. Like, we're cut from the same cloth. That you get to do that. And you take things that you learned in my mastermind, implement that into your mastermind. And I do that from masterminds that I'm involved with. I've learned from them. I implement it. And then seeing you do the same thing, I'm like, that's just so great. So
it's awesome. I mean, it's been a great journey. I love seeing the people pop up in that mastermind when you open that Zoom and they start to come in. You're like, all right, good. Let's teach some stuff. Let's learn something. So it's a great feeling. Again, I thank you for your masterminds, because they did give me the idea. Did give me actually the courage too, because that's not something easy to do. You have to stand up, sit in front of this camera, talk to people. Most of the time they have their cameras off, so you're talking to a black screen. So it's hard to keep that conversation going.
Dude, Yoel, the first one that I did, I prepared forever for it. And then the power went out. Like, everything that was going wrong, everything went wrong. I was so nervous. And now I just do them all the time, and it's super easy to do.
Well, now, isn't that cool how even if you don't have a topic, you just get on there and you can talk for an hour?
You just talk. People ask a question or they don't ask a question. I can just get started, and then questions start coming in.
That's where I'm getting to now.
I love it.
Because before I was super nervous, getting ready for it. What do I talk about? I don't know what to say. And then that camera comes on and you're just like, all right, let's talk.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, I appreciate your friendship. I love what you've done. And thanks for coming on the podcast to share it with everyone.
I appreciate you. And thank you for having me on, man.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.